Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Chun and I am from Handong Global University in South Korea. I am currently doing my research under the supervision of Professor Chanju at the Handong Artificial Intelligence Lab. Today, I am here to present my paper, Bridging the Linguistic Divide Between South Korea and North Korea by developing a North-South Korean parallel corpus for machine translation. Well, this is the outline of my presentation. I will begin with a brief introduction followed by related works and the contributions of our research. Then I will explain how our research team constructed a North-South Korean parallel corpus and proved the efficacy of this corpus by conducting North-South Korean translation experiments and evaluation. Then I will conclude with a summary and share directions for future work. North Korea and South Korea both use the Korean language. However, the ongoing geographical and social-political division of Korea has brought many differences between the North and South Korean languages. It is known that everyday North Korean words differ by 38% from those used in South Korea, while terms used in professional fields differ by 66%. And the two languages have diverged enough to the point where more than half of the North Korean defectors confess that they need more than 6 years to get fully accustomed to the South Korean language, which definitely indicates a huge language barrier even after Korean reunification. But unfortunately, obtaining the North Korean language data is very difficult, so investing in active research on mitigating this language gap is not an easy task. In fields such as machine translation, well, there are not that many North-South Korean parallel corpus available. So as a result, machine translation between North and South Korean are very scarce. Luckily, we were able to find a few studies that dealt with machine translation that involves the North Korean language. This study from Tokyo Metropolitan University conducted North Korean to English and North Korean to Japanese machine translation experiments. From a North Korean news portal, news articles published in North Korean and the translated English and Japanese versions were used to align the sentence pairs. And a total of 5,000 North Korean English sentence pairs and a total of 4,700 North Korean Japanese sentence pairs were created. Although this study was a research on North Korean machine translation, it did not address machine translation between North and South Korean. For this reason, we found another study that directly dealt with North Korean and South Korean machine translation. But here, this study used the existing South Korean English and North Korean English news data from the Korean parallel data to create a total of 3,000 South Korean North Korean sentence pairs. But because of the small size of the training data, only a few linguistic differences were observed in the dataset and in the translation results. This study shows the need for a higher quality and a larger scale corpus that contains various linguistic differences between the North and South Korean languages. So the first contribution that our team made is constructing a North-South Korean parallel corpus. We used the North and South Korean versions of the Bible, classic novels, and Korean folk tales. Below is the example of the sentence pairs in our corpus. The red highlighted part is where the North Korean sentences go, and the blue highlighted part is where the South Korean sentences go. A North Korean sentence and South Korean sentence with the same meaning were matched to create a sentence pair. And then we made this corpus publicly available in GitHub to promote further research in linguistics or natural language processing. To prove that our corpus is very useful when conducting natural language processing tasks, we developed and evaluated a North-South Korean bidirectional translation model using our corpus. Below is an example translation output of the SK to NK model. Well, this translates a South Korean sentence to a North Korean sentence. And the colored parts over here, they are the key differences between North and South Korean, and you can see that this translation model effectively captured these differences and produced the correct translation. These are the steps that we had to go through to create a North-South Korean parallel corpus. First, the resources used were English and French classic novels, Korean folk tales, and the Bible translated into North and South Korean. We were able to obtain the North Korean versions of these resources thanks to the Ministry of Unification in South Korea and the Korea Institute of Science and Technology Information. Then using optical character recognition, also known as OCR, we converted the PDF files into text files. Any spelling or spacing errors in the text were corrected by cross-checking with the original PDF file. And we removed any punctuation marks except these four. These four punctuation marks were used to divide the text into sentences. The next step was to match the North Korean and South Korean sentence with an identical meaning. Multiple sentences were allowed in the same row to create sentence pairs as long as one or more sentences in both languages share the same meaning. And any sentences with no corresponding match in the other language were deleted. A significant amount of manual work was needed to build the corpus. So we recruited 20 undergraduate students from Handong Global University so that they can help out with the manual work. And this project was managed by 4 project leaders, taking about 4 months to complete the whole process. Because the student workers were native South Korean speakers with little or almost no knowledge about the North Korean language, there was a higher possibility of overlooking errors in the North Korean text than in the South Korean text. To avoid this, we studied important linguistic differences between the North and South Korean languages to reduce errors in the North Korean text. Also, in the sentence alignment step, a strict guideline was given to the student workers, and each part was reviewed twice by different students to reduce individual bias. In the top left, this is the QR code to the GitHub repository to our North-South Korean parallel corpus. In total, there are about 130,000 sentence pairs in our corpus. The classic novels account for 72% of the corpus, making up the largest portion. The Korean folk tales in the Bible comprise 5% and 23% each in the dataset. Next, we used the North-South Korean parallel corpus to train and evaluate a North-South Korean bidirectional translation model. Well, this process was needed because we needed to validate that our corpus can produce desirable results for machine translation between North and South Korean. To do this, a South Korean pre-trained model, Colbart, was fine-tuned with our data, the North-South Korean corpus. Colbart was chosen because fine-tuning Colbart with North Korean text has shown high performance in the previous research, the first one that we saw before, the North Korean Japanese and North Korean English machine translation experiment. Because our experiment also deals with North Korean language, we decided to fine-tune Colbart with our own data. The performance of the translation model was evaluated using 2 metrics, BLEU score and BERT score. The BLEU score compares the n-grams of the candidate with the n-grams of the reference and counts the number of matches. Basically, it measures the surface form similarity between the translation output and the answer sentence. Well, the result shows that the NK to SK model, which translates North Korean sentences into South Korean sentences, achieved a higher score than the translation in the opposite direction. This was probably because of the difference in the number of reference sentences possible to compare with the translation output. Because there were many limitations in obtaining North Korean data, the North Korean sentences were drawn from only a single publisher for each resource. But for the classic novels, the South Korean sentences were able to be extracted from up to 4 publishers from at least one and at most four publishers for each resource. This might have placed the SK to NK model at a disadvantage because it had fewer reference sentence options than the NK to SK model. This made me question the fairness of the blue score when it is used in contexts where one language is allowed to have multiple correct answers. To address the drawback of the blue score in our context, we used another metric called the BERT score. BERT score calculates the semantic similarity between the candidate and reference texts. It uses the contextual embeddings of BERT, which can create different vector representations for the same word depending on its surrounding words. And this makes BERT score effective to detect paraphrases and capture dependencies of not only n-grams, but for a potentially unbound length. Here you can see that in terms of BERT score, both models achieved a high score. Blue score would have penalized the translated sentences that used different words or sentence structures, although their meaning matched the reference. However, BERT score would have recognized those paraphrases as correct translations and led to a higher score. A qualitative analysis was conducted to determine which linguistic differences the translation model could capture. We narrowed down our analysis to three main categories: vocabulary, spelling, and word spacing. And this book over here, Understanding the Languages of North and South Korea, this was a very big help. In our paper, we discussed many linguistic differences between the North and the South, but because we are running out of time, here we will only talk about the three highlighted parts. North Korea and South Korea often use different words to refer to the same thing. For instance, they use entirely different words to express a situation where someone becomes the talk of the town, something that everybody is interested in talking about. South Koreans use the word 화제에 오르다, whereas North Korean uses the word 말밥에 오르다. From a South Korean speaker's perspective, the North Korean word 말밥에 오르다 sounds strange because 말밥 is a word that is not used in South Korea at all. Well, here we can see that the NK to SK model correctly translated the North Korean word into the correct South Korean word. One of the most prominent differences in vocabulary is probably the English loanwords. North Korea has converted many expressions from other countries into pure Korean words, while South Koreans use many English loanwords. For instance, for the English word curtain, South Korea uses the word cotton, which is quite close to the English pronunciation. But on the other hand, North Korea uses the word 창가림, which is a combination of the word 창, meaning window, and 가림, which means shade. Here we can see that the NK to SK model correctly translated the North Korean word into the South Korean word. The SK to NK model also translated the South Korean word curtain into the North Korean word curtain. The two countries have some differences in spelling, and here I would like to introduce how the endings of the word are written differently based on the final syllable vowel of the stem. For instance, according to the rules written over here, the word that has the meaning to break off a relationship with someone is written in South Korean as 헤어지다 and in North Korean 헤어지다. For non-Korean speakers, this is a very subtle pronunciation difference, but here you can see that South Korean uses 어, while North Korean uses 여. The NK to SK model currently translated the North Korean word to break off a relationship into the South Korean word. And the SK to NK model also translated the South Korean word into the accurate North Korean word. And There are also some word spacing difference, and here I want to point out the difference in the spacing of dependent nouns between the two languages. In South Korea, a dependent noun is separated from the preceding verb or adjective stem. Here in this example, this is called 만큼, and it is a dependent noun because it is used after the adjective stem over here. So word spacing is applied in South Korean. However, in North Korean, they apply a different rule and attach the dependent noun to the preceding adjective stem. But in the case of particles, both countries attach the particle to the preceding noun. One thing we can notice is that although the outward form of the dependent noun and the particle, they are the same, but in South Korean, depending on whether they function as a dependent noun or particle, different word spacing is applied. So we checked whether the NK to SK model correctly applied this word spacing rule. Here you can see that the dependent noun is separated from the preceding adjective stem over here. Spacing is applied correctly. And when that word is used as a particle, no spacing is applied to the South Korean translation output. In conclusion, our research demonstrated the potential of newly created North-South Korean parallel corpus as a valuable resource for developing a high-quality machine translation model between the North and South Korean languages. The BERT score results indicate a strong translation performance for both the NK to SK and SK to NK models. The qualitative analysis also highlights the model's ability to capture the key linguistic differences between the two languages. However, the linguistic differences we could see in the translation results were mostly those that frequently appeared in the parallel corpus. Because of the historical period of the classic novels and the Bible, the North-South Korean parallel corpus lacked the contemporary vocabularies and technical terms, and these were the parts that were difficult to assess. Therefore, in the future, to enhance the translation model's performance, we aim to expand our corpus with sentence pairs from various sources, such as modern literature and research papers from the late 20th or 21st century. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for your attention.